What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Wanted to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching sports. This app is really easy to use. You just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your cash on a single lineup. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use the promo code PFF and download the app now. So the Patriots pick is in, and we also have the Browns pick. So this one's the one with a lot of speculation, right? Because if you're trading back for number 2, who are you targeting here at number 5? The pick for the Cleveland Browns is Mason Graham. Ooh. So they trade back from number 2 to get Mason Graham at number 5, and they get an additional second-round pick this year and an additional first-round pick next year to do it. What do we think about them targeting Mason Graham?
I'll just say it right now. Listen, we've said it all the time that Abdul Carter's an elite player in this draft, Travis Hunter, and Ashton Jinty. Mason Graham is as close to that tier, in my opinion, as possible.
So you love this.
They are still getting an elite player here at number 5 overall. He's had 90-plus PFF grades in each of the last 2 years, 92.5 career grade, and 80 grade as a true freshman, which is incredibly rare for a true freshman. Yes, the length isn't the best, but I think this guy is up there with Jalen Carter, with Quinnen Williams as the best D-tackle prospects in recent memory. Mason Graham's a top 5 player in this draft. I'm so happy he actually went top 5.
I'm happy this happened because the entire time for the last 2 months we've been saying, hey, Travis Hunter's going second and Mason Graham's going 5th.
It actually happened. Yeah,
and we just got the teams flipped on it. Even in our final mock draft, we still had Mason Graham at 5, and I was feeling a little uneasy about it waking up this morning. That came up on the site, and I was like, oh, I don't know if we're getting it, but Graham's awesome. There's no question, even in a super deep defensive tackle class where there's going to be good players taken deep into the 4th round, I think. Clearly the best one. Clearly the best one. Led the nation this past year in run defense grade. I believe a 91.3. Still an 81 pass rush grade. Really good on a great defensive line in Michigan they had there. You just watch him, and he's just a different type of athlete there, I think, when you watch him play. And if the playing weight actually is at right around 315 pounds instead of the 296 he measured at the combine, if he moves like he does on tape at 315, that's ridiculous because there's reps of him, at 3 technique, head up over people, off the edge, standing up off of the edge and looping back inside. The things he can do for you on passing downs as well with his versatility, you get, I'm not saying it's the same because they're built completely different, but it's what the Chiefs do with Chris Jones, right? On those obvious passing situations, hey, here's your matchup. We don't care where it's at on the line of scrimmage. You can stand on 2 feet if you want to. Just go beat him. And Mason Graham does it more often than not. So I think this is a fabulous pick. I think for all the talk that was about Abdul Carter pairing with Myles Garrett, maybe we'll get a Jack Links duo here for Graham and Garrett. I absolutely love this because the Browns needed this type of player on the inside.
If you looked at the top 100 big boards that we did over at PFF.com, the Cleveland Browns big board had Mason Graham as the number 5 overall prospect for them on that board. Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and then Shedeur Sanders was at number 4 for them simply because of the big quarterback need. But Mason Graham was right there. I identified him as a player that they absolutely would love. Here they trade back to number 5, and they do get that player there. So I feel like that was a little bit of a win for the top team.
You guys all won, and I'm going to just give the flip side of this story, all right? So my problem with it is not that he's not a good player. Mm-hmm. I think he is. I just don't think he's any better than Walter Nolan or Derek Harmon from Oregon. Those 2 guys are longer. They're more angular. They have a little more ability to split defenders. As a 3 technique, so much of what you're doing is on the move, inside, outside. You're going to get those opportunities where they're going to have to try to reach you. I'm not so sure that Walter Nolan from Mississippi, who coming out of high school was the number 1 recruit in the nation, or Derek Harmon, who's 6'4" and 313 pounds and has almost a 34.5-inch arm span. When I watched those 2 guys play, I could make a strong case that they were at least as good, if not better, and I would have had a really tough time making that decision. And when I'm in that situation, I tend to go see if I can go backwards again. This is just where I was, that in all these, the offensive line and the defensive line, particularly the defensive tackles, I thought they were thick enough that it made picks 4 through 10 not nearly as valuable because I thought they were a little interchangeable in there.
Absolutely, and this it really does depend on your opinion of Graham. If it's that close, then maybe this wasn't the right decision. I think some teams would feel the same way about Ashton-Jeanty and the running back class, where it's, hey, there's a lot of other good players and a lot of other good alternatives, but we do have to sit here and wonder, what would the alternative have been for the Browns? Is it Teteroa and McMillan? Would they go receiver then instead of? But if they were going to take a receiver, would they not have just taken Travis Hunter, who they considered a receiver, right? Would it have been, should it have been an offensive lineman, a Membu or a Kelvin Banks, and start getting the future going on this offensive line? I do think at this point now, since they couldn't get a trade down apparently, Mason Graham was probably just the best player left on their board out of multiple options, because you're right, this is the part where it gets tough, and you go, every team's board, I think, in this draft is wildly different, and the Browns probably thought of Graham higher than those other guys. But it's possible that Nolan or Harmon could be the best one coming out of this draft. It's going to be fun to watch that over the next couple of years.
I think he's a great fit for the Cleveland Browns specifically. I think that Mason Graham is one hell of a football player. I really do. Am I worried about the length? Yeah, a little bit, just because in the NFL, bigger, longer, faster, stronger, as they say. Like it is a big people beat up little people type of a game. And when you have any sort of length limitations, that will factor into how effective you could be as a pro. But it didn't really affect how explosive and much of a difference.
And he works. He's George Karlaftis. He just works hard. He's earned the respect of everybody. But it is interesting that how did they get Myles Garrett, or at least part of the story was, he liked what their plan was coming into the draft. Mm-hmm. I wonder if he was told we're going to get a 3 technique of some kind with our top pick,
get some double
to
teams
take
off
some
you.
pressure off of you.
Yeah, could very well have been the case. You know, we thought that when Myles Garrett said that, hey, I like the plan, we all thought, oh, that means that they have a quarterback in hand, or certainly the money. Certainly the money. He likes the money. He probably, $40 million reasons a year to stay and be happy in Cleveland. But I do wonder if they said to him, hey, we're going to get you some help along the defensive line, and they certainly think that Mason Graham could do that. You brought up Walter Nolan. I have him as a top 10 player on my big board as well. I see him very similar to the way that you do. Very explosive. Somebody whose motor is also, I feel like, running hot every single play. And so I would have been entertained by another trade down if I was the Cleveland Browns there. I wonder if Chicago ever really did call up to Jacksonville at number 5 to potentially get Ashton-Jeanty. If that was the case, did Andrew Berry then call Ryan Poles and say, hey, what was the deal you had for them? Might be a deal for us, but obviously that doesn't manifest there.